Since its inception, Fire Emblem as a series has put both male and female characters into a wide variety of classes and roles, both in gameplay and story. But while their roles have always overlapped with each other, there has always been some unique differences between the genders that keep popping up. I have consulted with some of the most well-versed enthusiasts of different eras of Fire Emblem to try to gather as many gender differences, no matter how obscure they are, into one video. We will of course be going over the big ones like class, weapon, and skill differences, but we will be taking some tangents into some obscure, some tidbits that quite literally a handful of people are actually aware of. Even though I tried to gather as many differences as I could, there will always be a chance that no matter how minor or major, I may have missed one. So if you are watching this and are familiar with your favorite game's internal code, let me know if you have anything you would like to add that would fit in the theme of this video. I know that technically, because we're talking about male and female differences, that the title of this video should be Sex Differences in Fire Emblem, but I'm not going to run the risk of any demonetization. Even though I'm using the word gender to differentiate male and female characteristics in Fire Emblem, know that it's for this reason. But before we begin, a word from today's sponsor, Sword of Convallaria. Sword of Convallaria has been live for just over a month now, and is already making a big update in its main storyline. For those unaware, this game features turn-based gameplay inspired by the tactics series like Project Triangle Strategy, a game which I've covered before on the channel. A choice-based narrative with over 120 hours of storytelling and multiple endings. A stunning hero collection with beautiful pixel art, with each member of your team having branching skill progression, and music produced by the legendary Hitoshi Sakimoto, the composer behind genre-defining games like Tactics Ogre, Final Fantasy XII, the Final Fantasy Tactics series, and Valkyria Chronicles. The goal of the developers is to release another chapter by the end of the year. And now you can participate in the event Sand-Made Scales and acquire the powerful beacon, The Other Side of Balance. This beacon is integral to unlocking the new storyline centered around the mysterious new faction, Emblem. Alongside this new faction comes the Trading Post system, where players can take on orders, manage organizations, and encounter different events journeying between different trade points. It's your chance to build a strong caravan and become a commerce master. Two new characters, Coco, Scenery Explorer, and Acambe, Heart of Gold, accompany this event. And finally, this update introduces the Assist function, a means for players to select trained characters from Elysium to assist in battles, providing additional support and tactical advantages in challenging encounters. The Fantasy Tactical RPG is available on PC and mobile. Click the link in the description and pinned comment to download the game now. And thank you Sword of Convallaria for sponsoring today's video. From the first game, all Pegasus Knights were female, and the only male Wyvern Knights were enemies like Michaelis. And for those unaware or may have forgotten, Falco Knights didn't exist yet, and Pegasus Knights promoted to Wyvern Knights instead. This was the only female exclusive class, however, and there were far more male exclusive classes. Female units only appeared as Pegasus Knights, Clerics, Mages, Midia as a Paladin, and Tiki as a Manakete. Male units appeared in all classes except for Pegasus Knights. Female mages had different visual sprites to male mages, with dresses and long hair compared to robes and a tall hat, but both shared the same robed sprite when promoted to a bishop. Class diversity adjusted in Gaiden, with male mages and female mages getting entirely different promotions into Sage and Priestess respectively, and all Pegasus and Falco Knights were female, with no more male healers or flyers. That said, all mercenaries, archers, and soldiers were still male. Mystery of the Emblem introduced Cecil, the game's first playable female cavalier, Midia and Matilda being pre-promoted paladins, Sheena, the first female general, and Fina, the first dancer and second female-only class. Male units still existed in all classes except Pegasus Knights and Dancer, with male clerics no longer existing thanks to the removal of Riss. Mystery of the Emblem also introduced the concept of gender-locked weapons with the Lady Blade and Nosferatu. Previously, weapons were either PRF locked to a single unit, or were limited only by weapon type or a weapon level stat. The FE3 Lady Blade was only usable by female units, and since no female mercenaries existed, this meant only Fina or a dismounted Pegasus Knight or Cecil could use it. It was incredibly powerful, however, with 12 base might and effective damage against barbarians. Nosferatu, meanwhile, was the same life-draining spell we've all come to love across Fire Emblem, here as a light spell themed after its appearance in Gaiden, and limited to female mages. Genealogy of the Holy War featured troubadours for the first time, mounted female-only healers, as well as Ira as the series' first female Myrmidon, Bridget as the first female sniper, and Patty or Daisy as the first female thief. Outside of troubadour paladins and Loxus's promotion into Master Knight, however, there were no female combat cavalry. Female mages promoted into mage fighters. Lewin was a bard that promoted into a sage, Amid went from mage to mage fighter, and Azel and Arthur became mage knights. While again, no flying units were playable, every other class in the game had male representation. Male and female units also interacted with the new lover system, where units would gain points when standing next to each other or for various interactions and conversations. While not a strictly gender difference, only units of the opposite gender could become lovers in a mechanical sense, with all child units being set by their mother, with stat, skill, holy blood, money, and item inheritance being from both the mother and the father. In terms of weapons, the Miracle Sword was the only true gender-locked weapon, again exclusive to female units. Thracia 776 had a variety of male and female class crossover, though no female armors or cavaliers. Machua was the series' first female axe user after promotion. The Pegasus Knight, Troubadour, Cleric, and Dancer classes were female only, leaving bards, dark mages, and armors as male only. Lastly, there was a small difference between male and female archers. Male archers had 7 move compared to the female archers' 6 move, but male archers would not gain a move increase upon promotion. Finally, in some truly obscure gender trivia, many generic NPC and enemy units in Thracia have completely inconsequential but mismatched genders listed internally. Neither of them are named or have a face, but these are the following. Noteworthy here are that every single Pegasus rider is a dude. The Binding Blade introduced female shamans for the first time, as well as Echidna, the first female unit to use axes at base and to be called a hero. Which does ask the question, who really is the first female hero in the series? If they need to use swords and axes, it's Machua. If it's literally a hero, it's Echidna. Food for thought anyway. FE6 is also the only Fire Emblem game to not include any playable female paladin. Male-only classes now included Cavaliers, Fighters, Brigands, Pirates, and Mercenaries, with Roy as the only Lord and Merlinus as the only Transporter. Female-only classes included Pegasus Knights and Troubadours, with Fae as the only playable Manakete. All other classes had at least one male and one female representative, with some limited renaming like Ellen being a Cleric and Saul being a Priest, or Lauren being a Dancer while Elfin was a Bard. As for stat differences, most female units were given slightly different promotion bonuses and promoted caps compared to their male counterparts. These changes differ based on class in between games, but it all started in the GBA era. The final mechanical difference introduced between genders in the GBA era was aid calculation for mounted units, the stat used for carrying other units. While infantry had aid equal to their con -1, mounted units had less aid for higher con to represent the burden they placed on their mount. For some reason, female mounted units had an aid equal to 20 minus con, while male units had 25 minus con. I'm not sure what the gender of the rider had to do with the lifting capacity of their mount, but maybe it was intended for Pegasus Knights in particular, and they got extended to all mounted units without thinking about how little Milody's Wyvern would be able to carry. Blazing Sword kept a similar status quo, though with fewer playable units than FE6, there had to be some cuts in playable units for either gender. Female units only appeared in the following classes: Lord, Pegasus Knight, Archer, Cleric, Troubadour, Paladin, Dancer, Mage, Wyvern Lord, and Swordmaster, with Pegasus Knight, Cleric, and Troubadour being the only female classes. Once again, females being mostly flyers or healers continued to be a common trend. Sacred Stones was the first Fire Emblem game where the only playable archer, Naimi, was female, as Innis was a pre-promoted sniper. Amelia does a lot of work for the female class representation, single-handedly accounting for both female armors and female cavaliers, with her promotion into General or Great Knight also making her the only female axe user in Sacred Stones. All Pegasus Knights were once again female, as are Troubadours and Manichetes again with La Rochelle and Mira respectively. Path of Radiance is back to a single male lord, and notably includes only male tigers, thieves, archers, armors, and axe fighters. Meanwhile, all Pegasus Knights continue to be female. Mist being a cleric to Reese's priest gives them unique promotion paths from each other, and Astrid starts as a bow knight compared to the male lance, axe, and sword knights. With dancers being replaced by herons, which included both Raisin and Leanne, though she was an NPC, in this regard the only playable heron was Raisin. Like the GBA era, class bases and caps were influenced by gender. and Dragon Lagoos had different bonuses based on gender. Radiant Dawn, with its massive cast, has a much wider range of playable units across all genders and classes. Despite this, all Pegasus Knights continue to be female, and all Tigers, Axe Fighters, and Infantry Archers continue to be male. Of the new units, Meg, Heather, Micaiah, Leanne, and Vika in particular added female armor, thief, lord, heron, and raven representation. Interestingly, instead of dragons, ravens now had different bonuses based on gender. Shadow Dragon featured a reclassing system, but limited reclassing options by gender. If you were a male unit, you were put in one of two class lines. One that included Archer, Myrmidon, Cavalier, Mage, Cleric, and Wyvern Rider, but not Pegasus Knight, or another that included Fighter, Pirate, Mercenary, Armor Knight, Hunter, and Dark Mage. Female units received a class line, including all the classes female units joined as: Pegasus Knights, Myrmidon thanks to Athena, Archer thanks to Norn, Mage, Cleric, or Paladin, but not Cavalier. Marth as the game's lord, as well as Ballisticians, Thieves, and Manicheets could not reclass, and, except for Manicheets, they are all male only. Noteworthy because of the lack of unit-specific models in the rest of the game, but there are distinct male and female variants for the Archer, Myrmidon, Mage, Cleric, and Manicheet map sprites and combat models in the DS games. As for weapons, Excalibur and Aura were not limited to Merrick and Lind respectively anymore, and were instead made into gender-locked tomes, with Merrick and Lind just having access to them at E-rank magic. New Mystery of the Emblem continued the same reclass system with a few additions. Female units could become Cavaliers thanks to Cecil, and Generals, but not Armors, thanks to Sheena. But this was otherwise largely unchanged. Male units were still split between the two branches, but if you had completed the game at least once, you unlocked the combined reclass pool, letting any male unit become any reclass legal class except for Pegasus Knight. Ballistician did not exist anymore, but Thieves were still all male. The Excalibur and Aura changes from Shadow Dragon made it into New Mystery as well, alongside limiting Nosferatu to female mages just like in FE3. Awakening, including all child units and possible avatar combinations, have a significant overlap in playable classes between genders. However, the Fighter, Barbarian, and Villager class branches were all male only, with the Pegasus Knight, Troubadour, Manicheet, and Dancer branches being female only. Support conversations were changed to include S-rank marriage ranks. Only one S-rank could be obtained by a unit, and every S-rank in the game was between a male and female unit, though outside of Robin, not every unit could be supported together. Child units also returned from Genealogy, and in much similar fashion, all children except for Morgan and Lucina were tied to their mother, with hair color coming from their father. Class lines, stats, and one skill each came from both parents. Because skills were limited to certain classes, this also meant that without direct inheritance or cheating, a female unit could never learn HP plus 5, Zeal, Despoil, Gamble, Rally Strength, Counter, Wrath, Axe Fair, Aptitude, or Underdog. Likewise, male units couldn't learn Speed plus 2, Relief, Rally Movement, Gale Force, Rally Speed, Lance Fair, Resistance plus 2, Demoiselle, Rally Resistance, Dual Support plus, Luck plus 4, Special Dance, Odd Rhythm, and Wyrmsbane outside of their one inherited skill. Demoiselle was the first gender-dependent skill in Fire Emblem, as it granted bonuses only to male allies. This would get a counterpart in Fates in the form of Gentilhomme, granting bonuses to only female allies. Fates had very few restrictions on any class. For instance, Sky Knights, the Pegasus Knight stand-in for Hoshido, can be male or female. Outside of Azura being your only dancer, the only true gender-locked classes in the base game are Monk, Great Master, and Butler for male units, and Shrine Maiden, Priestess, and Maid for female units. Of these, Maid and Butler operate very similarly, just inheriting different classes from the male or female version of Troubadour, and Monk and Shrine Maiden have the same skills entirely. The biggest difference is that Great Masters use lances and their stats are distributed towards physical combat, and Priestesses use bows and their stats are distributed towards magical combat, but both learn the same skills. There are some DLC classes that are restricted as well though, namely Witch and Great Lord are female only, while Ballistician, Lodestar, Vanguard, and Grandmaster are male only. Interestingly, while almost every class in Fates has a programmed male and female variant, these variants have almost no stat changes between them, unlike earlier games which often changed stat caps for male and female units. Supports were changed slightly, with S-rank supports available between most female and male units, and A+ rank supports available for units with the same gender. In addition to S ranks leading to child units, they allowed partner seals to be used, turning a unit into their partner's class. Friendship seals worked for A+ pairs to change them into the paired units class. There were two possible S ranks for units of the same gender, and those were male Corrin with Niles and female Corrins with Rajat, though no children came from these pairings. A twist on child units, this time all children except for Kana and Shigure were tied to their father, rather than their mother. Similar inheritance rules to Awakening apply for stats, skills, and classes, with hair color being determined by the mother instead of the father. Skill-wise, inheriting skills was made easier thanks to both the My Castle and Einherjar systems, so even without hacked skills, you could get almost any skill onto a male or female unit. As for DLC skills, male units can still learn Warp thanks to the Warp Scroll item drop on turn 10 of the DLC Witch Trial map. And likewise, females can get Veteran Intuition and Heavy Blade Scroll item drops from their respective DLC maps. Similarly, Speed Taker from Lodestar and Strength Taker from Vanguard can be obtained through Heirs of Fate rewards. As for skills that care about gender, in addition to Demoiselle and Gentilhomme, there are 3 personal skills. Charlotte's Unmask gives her bonus damage and crit against female foes. Soleil's Sisterhood has her deal more damage and take less damage with a female support unit. And Nina's Daydream gives her more damage dealt and less damage taken if she's adjacent to paired male allies. Finally, Fates introduced some gender-locked weapons too. The Hairpin and Camilla's axe were locked to female units, while Arthur's axe was locked to male units. No further explanation is given, but these are unique weapons from random My Castle rewards anyway, so I guess they wanted to make them even more unique. Shadows of Valentia has a few changes from Guidance system. Thanks to the pitchforks and introduction of Faye, a female villager, they created a female villager promotion tree. While all villagers can become cavaliers or mages, male villagers can become soldiers, mercenaries, or archers, while female villagers can become clerics or Pegasus Knights. Other than that, the gender disparity is the same as it was in Gaiden. Weapons-wise, there was one key exception, with the Lady Blade making its return in a chest in Duma Tower at the end of the game. It wasn't locked to female units this time, however, but instead it doubled its might when wielded by a female unit, thus being nearly useless in a male unit's hands. The only female sword-wielding units being Celica and the Priestess class, this weapon was clearly designed with them in mind. Three Houses begins most units as nobles or commoners, and unless we want to dive deep into the default classes of all students as enemies, class diversity can be assumed roughly equivalent. However, there are still some gender-locked classes. Only female units can be Pegasus Knights, Falco Knights, Gremmaries, Darkflyers, or Valkyries, and only male units can be Heroes, Brawlers, Grapplers, War Masters, Dark Mages, or Dark Bishops. The War Monk and War Cleric classes are again effectively the same class as each other, just named differently. As for skills, outside of the gender-locked class mastery skills, there are 2 pairs of personal skills that depend on the unit gender to operate. Sylvain deals 2 more damage and takes 2 less if he's next to a female ally, with Leonie doing the same but with male allies. Meanwhile, Hilda makes adjacent male allies deal 3 more damage, and Setith does that for female allies. Sylvain has another interesting gender-specific quirk. If you are playing as female Byleth, you can recruit him to your house regardless of your support or weapon ranks, because he's just like that.
I'd like to be in your class, if that's possible. I've been thinking, maybe I ought to get serious about studying. Wow, very decisive. I like it. I'll be there on time and in the front row and everything. You'll never have a better student.
While this means there are sets of inheritable skills which are gender-locked for male and female characters, one notable exception for this is Yuritsa, because his budding talent allows him to unlock Darting Blow, which is otherwise locked behind the Pegasus Knight class. This makes him the only male character in the game, outside of Byleth in New Game Plus, with access to it. Finally on our list is Engage, where the only restriction is that only female units can be base class flyers. Any unit can be a promoted flyer, Wyvern or Griffin, but unpromoted sword, axe, or lance flyers have to be female. For the first time in the series, the Dancer class is canonically a male in Seedal. As well, Rosado uses the female body model, not the male, which is also a first in the series, as it highlights his personal feelings on self-expression. Skill-wise, a few skills depend on the gender of units. Chloe deals more damage if both a male and female ally are adjacent to each other within 2 tiles of her. Louis takes less damage if 2 female allies are adjacent to each other within 2 tiles of him. Rosado inflicts -20 avoid on male foes, and Gold Mary does the same but for hit rate. And Marin gives herself and female allies extra hit and avoid if at least 2 females are within 2 spaces of her. And that just about wraps it up for basically every single gender difference in Fire Emblem in just over 20 minutes. Also, yeah, it's been like 6 weeks since I uploaded. I actually moved and did battle against my old landlords, and I won, by the way, so that was cool. More on that later maybe. And I recently just came back from a well-deserved and overdue vacation from anything online or gaming related. I've been dealing with some pretty hardcore scripted video burnout. Honestly, possibly the most I've ever had to in years. And lately, I've been thinking about doing an episodic Let's Play again just for fun. I've been feeling nostalgic for a randomized run, maybe of Engage, with fan art. But we will see. I hope you learned something new in today's video. Please leave a like and comment something down below to help this video reach more people, especially this time around since I've been gone for a very, very long time. And finally, thank you to all my patrons who've been supporting me, even despite my absence online. And if you want to support the channel and you want to support me beyond just watching and interacting with the video, please consider joining the Patreon. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Deuces.